Shoulder pain relief exercises. Today we are stretching and we're going to take you through the most important stretches that you should be focusing on to get the best bang for your buck results if you have rotator cuff problems. They're not what you think. We're going to reveal them and we're going to reveal a couple of the issues we see people doing where they're making big mistakes. We did too. All that and more coming up right after this. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
Hey everyone, in case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister, that's my brother Yanni Burmeister. We're the co-founders of Unity Gym and the co-creators of the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we teach you how to nourish and move instead of diet and exercise. And over there, that's Phil White, he's our resident physiotherapist.
Don't worry about him though, he knows nothing.
And today we're talking, we're continuing on with shoulder pain, and this is a hot topic. This is something that we get a lot of questions of. I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight here. We're actually hard at work right now on releasing the very program that you all asked for, which is after about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did a whole week on basically the shoulder rehab program that I've been doing for the last 6 months to rehabilitate my slap tear and torn supraspinatus and fluid in the bursa and other things. So it's been a really hot topic because I've made an amazing recovery without surgery, and everybody wanted to know, when can I get my hands on that program? Well, you are going to be able to get your hands on that program next week. We're finalizing it this week and next week, and we'll launch it at the end of next week. But today we're going to be revealing some of the stretches and some of the stuff that's going to be included in that program. So
what was it, divergence?
No, it wasn't. That was what the whole show's about.
Okay, all right. Threw me off a little bit there. So we got 3 really important talking points today, and the first one is, what is the shoulder rotator cuff and what does it do? No, it's not. We explained that. What we want to talk about, I've got the wrong note there. What I want to talk about is what effect your posture has on the shoulder rotator cuff. And this is something that I think is a real insight for people, because often when you experience inflammation in one of the rotator cuff tendons, it is symptomatic. That's where the symptom is, and it feels good to get that massage. It feels good to stretch that, but it's kind of like a Band-Aid solution, I like to call it. What usually is occurring is that you've got a dysfunction in the shoulder that's causing that inflammation, and we did speak about this a little bit on Monday, but we might as well explain again for the viewers that may have missed Monday's show. So take it away, Phil. What's happening in the shoulder most likely to inflame the shoulder rotator cuff?
Yeah, so basically when you think about how the shoulder's got to work, it's just an amazing joint where it's got such huge access to range of motion plus strength ability. And to be able to do all that, it needs to just have muscles controlling what it's doing. So if you can get your arm up into this position, you've got to let your scapula get pulled up by the muscles, and then you've got to have the muscles holding the bone in the head of the ball in the center of the socket. And so that's your rotator cuff that's doing that, holding the ball in the middle of the socket. And so if we're unable to control those movements, that's when issues start to happen. You start to get unwanted movement, so glides of the ball within the socket, so it kind of starts to move around in there and start to push up against some other structures that don't really like it. So yeah, I guess the approach we've taken when we're talking about the strengthening is getting those muscles that are doing that job. So your rotator cuff, for one, training in a dynamic, stabilizing sort of way, but also training the muscles around your shoulder to do their job really nicely in a balanced sort of way. So the muscles that control your scapula, but also the muscles that do the main movements of your arm, so your big muscles like your pecs and your delts and your lats. So it's all about getting that system to work really nicely rather than honing in on one specific little.
I like where you've gone there. Sorry, I'll let you go. But that feeds into really well what we're going to be doing today, because there's 2 real mechanisms that you need to focus on to have a good functioning rotator cuff. One is the strength of the surrounding muscles to help it do its job, and also the strength of the rotator cuff. The second is the flexibility in the surrounding areas, and that's what we're going to hone in on today. What did you want to add, Ray?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Oh, good.
Snap.
All right, let's go out and do some stretching.
Yeah, let's show you some stretching. The stretches that we're going to show you today. So it's super important that we get this this area free. So we need to focus, like double down on stretching the structures, the big movement structures in the outer, sort of, I call it the outer unit and the inner unit. I don't know why, I just sort of adopted that terminology.
Global and local structures.
Yeah,
Saying
that's
it
right.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. So the inner unit, if I refer to the inner unit during this discussion, because it's just drilled into my mind, I'm talking about the rotator cuff and the deep muscles. If I talk about the outer unit, I'm talking about the pecs, biceps, lats, delts, predominantly, and that's just the way my brain thinks of it. All right, let's go. Let's get out there. I can't believe I printed out the wrong thing.
You want to do a quick check of your mic, Yanni?
Yep. Test.
As in, like, look at the thing whether it's on mute.
Oh, really? No. Okay, guys, well, I have the mic. I was just checking that it wasn't on mute. Richie freaked me out, but we look like we're good to go. Hopefully you can all hear me. So the first thing that we're going to demonstrate, we're going to try and demonstrate some fairly easy stretches. The first stretch that I want to demonstrate, just come up for a sec, Rad. I want to demonstrate the doorway stretch first, because this is probably the easiest one for anyone to do. So come over here. We're going to do a bilateral doorway stretch first, Rad.
You know you're running into out of range.
I know. Well, we'll film from there. Okay. So Phil, do you want to demonstrate the stretch? Because Rad's probably, I'm going to have to explain it to Rad. So first of all, the doorway stretch, the most easy variation. This is a unilateral version, which is basically just taking the arm to a right angle, elbow slightly below the shoulder, and he's just rotating away from the arm that's stationary there. The next one that we can do is up high, and this is going to bring it into the pec major fibers more. So the first one is probably a little bit, well, it's a bit of both. This one, is this one more pec minor?
Yeah, I mean...
More pec minor. So now he's got his elbow up at just above ear height and he's leaning forward. So you can see that rather than rotating away now, he's leaning forward to produce a shearing force through the shoulder that's going to pull that pec minor. And this is probably one of the most crucial ones for you to do if you've got rotator cuff dysfunction, because the pec minor will play a major role in that. Now, he can also do a bicep stretch up here, which is just nice and easy. All he's done is think of a drink. You've tipped the drink out. So now you get your thumb facing downward and he's rotating away. So he's getting a really nice bicep and pec major stretch, and also the anterior deltoid in the front of the shoulder there as well. Pay note to the angles of his arms. The angles of the arm and elbow is really, really important.
Yeah, right.
If you find that they're uncomfortable, just back them off a little bit, but try to achieve those angles with the arm, the height of the elbow in relation to his shoulder and his jawline.
So you do the pec, like the first one, third one as well?
Yep. Now you've got a bilateral version going on. So he's now leaning in that doorway and he's stretching both sides at the same time. And that in itself is such a good stretch to do all day, because guys, if you're working in an office and you're sitting at your desk for long periods of time, prolonged sitting is anything over 20 minutes is going to have an impact on your posture. So it's really nice to get up and reverse that. And what I like so much about these stretches is that anyone has access to a doorway in the office. So you can get up and do it. And it's a little bit...
around on the floor.
Well, it's a little bit more practical than the floor. Now, the reason why we like to use the floor... Where's Rad? Rad?
What?
I was going to get you to come and demonstrate the floor ones. He's taken off. The reason why we like the floor ones, one is that we don't mind lying on the floor. We do a lot of our stretching on the floor. But it's easy, I believe, to really isolate the areas of the body that you want, because with the floor, you've got a palpation mechanism going on where you feel the floor touching you a lot more. So you can push your shoulder into the floor and you can really, really accentuate this stretch. I find that when you learn to use the floor, it's a lot better. You'll get a better result, but it's not as practical for most people who need to get up out of their chair throughout the day. So I'm not suggesting that if you're in your nice suit or business attire or work clothes to roll around on your office floor. People might look at you a little bit funny, but you've got no excuse now because we've shown you the doorway stretches too. So Rad's literally repeating the same positions and movements, but he's using the floor as an anchor and something to rotate against now. which is really nice. The other really great benefit with the floor is that it's easier to do the drag movement. So you're actually getting a little bit of glide in the shoulder. He's actually pulling his body away from his hand and rotating at the same time, which really allows you to increase the stretch. A great little hack with all of these stretches is to use breathing. Deep diaphragmatic breathing and chest breathing is going to expand the rib cage a little bit from the inside. So if you think about the logic there, all of the muscles that we're stretching sit on the outside of the rib cage. So if we can increase the volume of air in the chest, we're going to increase the stretch a little bit from the inside out, which is nice. And it's also nice to keep breathing whilst you're stretching. So Rad's also here making the stretch a little bit more intense by using his arm to increase the leverage. His leg. Apparently that's an arm today. Very nice. The only downside to the floor stretches is, as you can see, you can't do the bilateral stretching both arms at the same time if you're time poor. So it's just a really nice way to do that stretch. He's looking over his shoulder, he's anchoring. Key points to remember is try to keep the spine in neutral as much as you can, and try to press that shoulder into the ground. Press that arm into the ground whilst you're doing those stretches. They're so good, so nice. And the last stretch that I want to show today is just a passive and active hang. So jumping onto the bars. And this is something that we do so much of, and quite frankly, we encourage our members and clients to do all of the time. We have a bit of a goal here at Unity Gym to try and get 5 to 6 minutes of passive hanging done every day to decompress the shoulders, decompress the thoracic spine, and it also works as a beautiful chest stretch. So this is obviously an advanced version. The most advanced version we do is single arm, and we also do rotations through the shoulder. But the obviously regression from here would be to find a bar that would allow you to keep your toes on the floor, and a regression from there is that you can do it on an incline, so the arms are in front of the body. That'll regress the demand of flexibility a little bit more if you've got really impinged or tight shoulders. Awesome. Let's jump back into the studio and we'll discuss what we've just gone through and discuss why this is so important for you guys to understand, because the key insight today, you notice there that we didn't show one rotator cuff stretch. We only showed stretches that stretch the opposing or surrounding muscles. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to demonstrate a lat stretch. I wanted to demonstrate a lat. Yeah, the hanging stretches, the passive hanging stretches the lat, but I was going to demonstrate a single arm, a unilateral lat stretch as well, which is a really nice way of doing it. So why don't we talk about why stretching these surrounding areas is so important for the rotator cuff?
Yeah, it's something I just see, I get so commonly with all parts of the body where people come in. I've been a massage therapist for 7 years, and now as a physio, people come in and they're like, oh, I'm just so tired. I've really not been doing enough stretching lately, and I know I should stretch more, and that'll make me better. But I think a lot of the time, and then people are like, oh, they get into the sleeper stretch, which is a great stretch to open up range in your shoulder. Or they're with their back, they'll be really trying to stretch out their back or their hamstrings when really so much tightness comes from a load tolerance issue. And so when they're wanting to, they think that to fix themselves, they need to stretch that out. But really, you've got to build up your load tolerance so it doesn't get quite so tight in the first place. So that's why I think what we're doing here is really important, where it's focusing on those muscles that get your shoulders into a really good posture. So then when you're using your shoulders, as I was talking about the other day, if your scapula is in a less than ideal position, so winging forward, it makes it much harder for your rotator cuff muscles to be doing their job as efficiently. And so when you've got something that's not working as efficiently, it has to do more work to achieve the same results. So that, therefore, when you're thinking about load tolerance, so the amount of force that your rotator cuff can kind of handle before it starts to tap out, it's going to be reduced because you're less efficient. So if we can increase that efficiency of your rotator cuff and start training that system in its ideal sort of position, then it's going to be able to handle more load, and it won't get that sort of tight feeling where you need to stretch it out. Yeah. So certainly stretching it can be a nice sort of symptomatic relief. So, but it's not going to be the key to making you better long term. Same thing happens with the back and the hamstrings. get into some strengthening. That will
Yeah.
stop you from getting this tightness in the first place.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, we do absolutely love specific rotator cuff stretching, but for the majority of people, it's not the best place to start, because there is also an issue with, if you've got a really inflamed rotator cuff tendon, there's a chance that there are tears in the tendon body, and stretching it is not very good for it initially.
As I've been hammering on about, like the shoulder stability comes from activity of the muscles around the joint, and you've got like all this range that you've got to be able to control in. So if you've got this lax joint, which you've really stretched the active and passive structures, then you're going to need to do more work to be able to actively control that as well. So it's something to keep in mind about, like, what does the system need?
Yeah.
Generally, it's not to
Yeah.
make something stronger. You don't just stretch it apart.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Now, remember, when we talk about active and passive structures, we're talking about the inner unit, the muscles that sort of hold, or the tendons and ligaments
So
that
muscles
hold.
attaching to tendons, so they're the active structures, and then passive structures will be your ligaments, your cartilage, so your labrum,
Yeah.
all these, and your bony sort of congruence.
Yeah, that's right. So, look, I think what we really want everyone to take home out of this show today is that the posture, the upper body posture, is absolutely critical for your rotator cuff to function properly. And the posture needs a combination, like, to have good posture, you need a combination of strength and flexibility. It needs to really be worked together. If you just stretch your structures, you're going to probably not get the result you want. If you just strengthen your structures, you may not get the result you want, because you may have compromise there that, as Phil said, if it's not as efficient, it's going to get inflamed really easy, really quickly, and you'll find that workouts that someone with a good shoulder structure will find really easy and get a great result from will just inflame your shoulders more.
Yeah, and I think, like, really to hone in on why the doorway stretches that we're showing, or the ones on the floor, are so important is so much of modern life is here.
Yeah.
You're at a computer, you're driving a car, you're on your phone. Like, you just don't really get out of that sort of shoulder forward posture for most of the day. And I love it. You were just talking about how you spend a bit of time hanging, because, like, the human body, if you look at, I guess, apes and other animals that are kind of like us, they spend a lot more time in that kind of climbing position, putting load through those positions. Whereas, like, modern life, we just don't do any of that. Hey,
Yeah,
so it's all down here. So we're basically trying to, if you think about it like a bit of a tug of war, when we talked about strengthening the shoulders the other day, saying that 1-to-1 ratio of the pulling with the pushing. So you're trying to build up those back muscles that will keep you back your shoulders into that position a bit easier. But yeah, think of it like a tug of war. You got the tightness from this sort of constant shoulder forward posture, and then you've got the strength of the muscles in your back. So
yeah, and this is interesting because it goes into a conversation that we've had from many a time with people as to why we've gravitated towards calisthenics and gymnastic strength training. And one of the main reasons for me is because I really like the way that they operate using the shoulder. We don't get enough work in just regular gym training where we're using assisted machines or even barbells and dumbbells. We don't use our shoulders in extreme flexion or extreme extension very much. And it's, we don't need that strength, that end range strength, until we need it, and often, especially if you've been sedentary for a while and just working with your shoulders in a very sort of set position in front of your body on your computer, driving, whatever we do as our lifestyle requires us to do, we then, might get a little bit overweight when we hit our 30s, 40s, and we think, oh God, I need to go to the gym. And then we go to the gym and we work with a trainer who asks of our shoulder far more than what we're actually capable of doing now, because we've lost our ability to operate in flexion and extension positions. And then we end up injured, and we wonder why, So before you hit the gym really hard, start to get your shoulder comfortable in those positions again. It's so important. And this is so brings us down to the types of training that we do with our shoulders. Like that's what the I guess the calisthenics and gymnastics strength side of the UMS is all about. It really, really asks you to challenge your body in different positions, and sometimes that is literally, like we were talking about this the other day with that crab walk. It's just like so different for the body to have to handle, and it's so good for you.
Yeah, and so you just got to work through those progressions and regressions, just like Yanni was talking about with the hanging. Start with some weight on your feet, and then start to gradually take that off. And yeah, so just
Absolutely.
gradual exposure.
Move it or lose it, guys. Move it or lose it. All right, look, we're going to continue on this shoulder discussion tomorrow. We're going to go into some more advanced strengthening exercises and some mobility stuff. We're going to slowly progress the difficulty. Are we doing a show tomorrow?
You might be,
We
but
might
I won't.
be, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
Rad's away. And as Rad said, we're after that, we're going away for a few days and we're working hard on this 18-minute shoulder rehab program. We're very excited about this. It's off the back of a lot of requests from people, so look out for that. And we will, are you in tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be around.
We'll do a show tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll see you then, guys. Remember, if you want to dip your toe in the Unity pool, download our free flexibility blueprint. It is linked in the description. And also, if you're keen to dive headfirst into the inner circle, you can grab yourself a free month UMS online coaching. I'll also link that at the bottom of the description of this video. Until tomorrow, thank you guys for joining us. Say bye to Rad. He's going on a short family vacation tomorrow. And we will see you tomorrow. Phil and I will be here, and Richie.
See you later,
See
everyone.
you guys. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.